going to look at some definitions of keywords for quadrilaterals. So quadrilaterals, first of all, are four-sided figures. So I'm going to actually move this and put this right at the top. Quadrilaterals, four-sided, closed figure. Okay, no curves, has to have that closed side. Okay, now we are going to quadrilateral four-sided closed figure. Now we're going to look at a parallelogram. A parallelogram has two pairs of opposite, parallel, that's the symbol for parallel, sides. It has two pairs of congruent, this is the symbol for congruent, equal sign with a little thing on top, opposite, OPP, sides. The slopes, opposite slopes are the same. Opposite slopes are the same. So if we're looking at the sides, the opposite sides slopes are the same. Opposite angles are the same. And diagonals bisect each other. So they have a common midpoint. Okay, we're just going to draw a little sketch of that right here. So we've got opposite sides are congruent. So that's my congruent, that little sign. Parallel, these little arrows show parallel. I'm going to make two arrows for these sides so we know they're not parallel to each other. Okay, so opposite sides are congruent and parallel. Diagonals bisect each other. And opposite angles are congruent. Okay, that's a lot of sketching in there, but that's what it would look like if we stated all those things. Next, we're going to talk about the quadrilateral, a kite. It has no parallel sides. Remember that little, looks like an 11 or stripes, that means parallel, no parallel sides. Two pairs of adjacent congruent sides. Two pairs of adjacent means next to, congruent sides. Remember the equal sign with a little squiggle means congruent. It has one pair of congruent angles. Okay, and the diagonals intersect perpendicularly. Diagonals are perpendicular, we'll just say. And this upside down T, that means perpendicular. Okay, so if we draw a kite, kind of looks like a kite you would fly outside. Okay, these sides are congruent. These sides are congruent. Nothing's parallel. And these angles right here are congruent. And when we draw in the diagonals, they're perpendicular. And perpendicular means they would meet at a right angle, so that's why there's that little square in the corner. Okay, trapezoid. Trapezoid has one pair of parallel. Remember that little stripes means parallel, parallel sides. And the diagonals don't do anything for a trapezoid. This is what a trapezoid looks like. This is just a regular trapezoid. Okay, these two sides are parallel. The others aren't. Now, a isosceles trapezoid is a special kind of trapezoid. It again has still a trapezoid because it only has one pair of parallel sides. The non-parallel sides are congruent. Remember that little equal with a squiggle means congruent. It has one pair of congruent slopes. So does a trapezoid, actually. It has two congruent consecutive, that means next to each other, angles. And the diagonals are congruent. Okay, so if I draw an isosceles trapezoid, it kind of looks like a triangle with the top cut off. So we've got one pair of parallel sides, one pair of congruent sides. These angles are congruent, and then these angles are congruent. And then my diagonals, I'm not sure how to draw this other than to draw them in, are equal to each other. They do not bisect them. Okay, so we're going to move on to rectangles. Okay, rectangles have two pairs parallel sides, two pairs congruent sides. They have opposite slopes are congruent. All four angles are congruent and right. 90 degrees, or a right angle. And diagonals are congruent. So if we draw our rectangle, opposite sides are parallel. Opposite sides are congruent. That's what those little lines mean. The arrows means parallel, those means congruent. All four angles are 90 degrees and equal, and the diagonals are going to be equal to each other. And they bisect. Which means they have a common midpoint. So to show that they bisect, 1, 2, 3 on this side, 1, 2, 3 on this side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, a rhombus. Two pairs parallel sides, four congruent sides. Opposite sides, same slope. Opposite angles are congruent. And the diagonals bisect each other and are perpendicular. Okay, sometimes people call a rhombus a diamond. It is not. Okay, so all four sides are equal. Opposite sides are parallel. Opposite slopes are parallel. Opposite angles are congruent. So I can do like two little angles right there to show they're congruent. And diagonals bisect each other and are perpendicular. So that's that little meet at 90 degrees right there. All right, last one, square. Two pairs parallel sides, four congruent sides, four congruent angles that are 90 degrees, or right angles. Opposite slopes are the same. And diagonals are bisecting and perpendicular. Remember, bisecting means we'll have the same midpoint. Okay, so if we're going to draw a square, we have 4 congruent sides. Opposite sides are parallel. It has 4 right angles. Diagonals bisect. And are perpendicular, meaning 90 degrees. Okay, so that's it for each of these.